Join us now, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. Today is July 19th, 2017. This is an episode of Inside Baseball. Inside Baseball is our segment where we deep dive into a particular aspect of Japanese politics that has contemporary meaning to your understanding of how things are actually running. I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Cucek. Michael?
Yeah, let's get into something.
Let's talk about the main opposition party here in Japan, the Democratic Party, formerly known as formerly known as the Democratic Party of Japan. They changed their name. They kind of did a dressing up of things. They occupy about 20% of both houses of the parliament, the upper house and the lower house, and they are the main opposition party, and boy, do they give the LDP a run for the money.
They certainly give the LDP hell. A run for the money, however, is a bit of a stretch.
It was tongue-in-cheek.
I understand.
Okay.
The DP, in its 20% in both houses, actually way outperforms its popularity. It has somewhere between 5 and 6% support, which is bottom of the barrel, except there are other parties with even lower levels of support that are below it, that are supposed to be other parts of the opposition. So, relatively speaking, it's the main opposition, but giving the LDP, the ruling LDP, a run for its money, not even close.
People always ask me, so the political parties in Japan, what defines them? What makes them, what is their central theme of existence? And that's a little bit hard question, isn't it?
It's a hard question for all the parties. Maybe you can make a certain there's a certain cohesiveness.
The LDP is big business. It's kind of blue chip, but
it's not just big business. It's small business.
Right.
And increasingly, it's not just the managerial class, but also some parts of white-collar labor are slowly leaving behind. Even ones who are in unions are leaving opposition and going into the main tent. It's religious group members, it's all kinds of different interest groups, professional groups like the dentists and the doctors, all under one big tent.
Right. It's mostly dictated by personalities, wouldn't you say?
Well, personalities, and also the sense that since it's the dominant and dominating party, it can get things done for you.
Right.
So you should support it even if you don't like them.
And the other kind of characteristic that's pretty prevalent here is the succession of father to son and grandfather, and so these hereditary seats that are probably Japan has the largest percentage of hereditary seats than any democracy.
Maybe the only real rival is the Senate of the Philippines, where you have a similar
12 families.
A similar set of families, but there is, in Japanese politics, a continuity, and the LDP represents that continuity. Right. And let's face it, continuity is good, stability is good.
Right.
And to have an opposition which can trade off has been a dream for the political scientists, of course, but some members of society as well. And it seemed in the DPJ, the old Democratic Party of Japan, that we had the makings of it, and in 2009, they in fact engineered a takeover in power.
And 3 prime ministers they supplied.
And 3 prime ministers in 3 years, and they were out. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, first the Minshuto, the Democratic Party of Japan, then it took in some pieces of failing other parties, particularly the remainder of the Minnanoto, Watanabe Yoshimi's little personal experiment in free marketeer kind of those people were brought in,
and they lost a couple. They lost Ozawa.
They lost a few as well along the way, but they've been consolidating mostly. But it's not led to a popular reaction for them, even though they have done pretty much everything that you're supposed to do to consolidate their numbers. When it comes time for an election, the people aren't there for them anymore.
Right.
Now, they have tried a series of leaders. They have gone through leaders like water. And
let's get the rich guy.
Let's get the rich guy.
Let's get the handsome guy.
One after another. A different flavor of let's try popular. Well, they made a big leap and went and picked a woman as their leader. Ren Ho.
A great selection, though, at the time, wasn't it? I mean, it was
Yeah, it seemed a very reasonable step forward, and it was
newsworthy. It was catchy. She was attractive. She really kicked ass when the DP was in power, when they were grilling the bureaucrats.
She has a very sharp tongue
That's right.
and a sharp mind. But then she got tripped up immediately by these questions of her nationality. And
She got tripped up because of the dynamics inside the party. I mean, they can't get their act together, and they're just looking for any reason. It could be your colleague inside the party itself. I mean, the amount of infighting that goes on there, it's just such a distraction.
But we should, for the benefit of the viewers, be honest that the first thing that she ostensibly had to deal with was questions about her nationality.
Okay.
She thought that,
Honestly, maybe.
most likely honestly, certain media outlets like to say that she lied. She thought that she had thrown away her Taiwanese background, and that happened when she was a teenager, when it first became legal for her to take Japanese citizenship. Because she was in the situation where her father is from Taiwan and her mother is a Japanese, under the law that existed at the time of her birth, she did not have automatic Japanese citizenship.
You have to apply for it.
You have to apply for it, and you don't have the ability, you don't have the conduit.
Particularly because her father, not her mother.
That's right. There was a sexist law which had the children...
The bloodline or the nationality follows the father's bloodline.
Father, and the mother is irrelevant. That law was changed when she was a teenager, and she thought, when she went with her father to the Taiwan representative office here in Tokyo, that
She relinquished.
she took up Japanese citizenship, and she relinquished Taiwanese citizenship. It turns out, whatever her father was jabbering, either in Mandarin and Taiwanese, I don't know which he spoke, but it was not something that she understood. She'd grown up and lived in Japan her entire life. It turns out they probably didn't make the renunciation. She did not know that. She ran for a Diet seat. She became a Diet member, all of which would be illegal if she had double citizenship. And
Never an issue.
it was never an issue until she tried to become leader. And that story only came to a final resolution, one hopes, yesterday, when she presented people with copies of her family registry, the Cucek, which we have to discuss as as the focus and the center of a person's identity. You don't exist, at least in terms of your relationship with the government, as an individual. You are in a family registry. You are registered as a family.
Your family tree is outlined on this document. It is held inside the government, and it is meticulously maintained by you when you get married, when you get divorced, when you have children.
Where you came from, how many children you have. There cannot be on a Cucek 2 adult generations. So when you get married, you start a new family registry. That's why they say new seki, to enter into the seki. You are in a new complete. So it's not necessarily, if you're married, you don't actually know who the parents are, but your original home address is listed there. And in the past, that was a source of discrimination because there were certain areas where certain kinds of people lived that were discriminated against, particularly the Burakumin class of outcasts and persons with Chinese or Korean backgrounds. Those things could be hidden in every day. You certainly did not need to know.
And it's not public knowledge.
It's not public
somebody
knowledge.
has to have a reason to know and your permission to have a copy of your Cucek.
That's right. She did not reveal it at the time when she was elected. She did not reveal it when she finally said, I have finally renounced my Taiwanese citizenship. And in this after the electoral basically defeat in the Tokyo Metropolitan Assembly election,
They lost 2 seats.
They lost 2 seats. Oh my God, it's a catastrophe.
From 7 to 5.
From 7 to 5.
But still.
So they lost, but it's only a minor loss. Nevertheless, within the party began this basically ethnically based
rumbling of revolution.
We lost because she's not been able to get the people's trust because of this nationality issue.
And this issue came from within the party.
But also it's from the internet and the right wing. The right wing commentariat has been jumping up and down. She's a liar. She's a foreign agent. She's a foreign national.
That is terrible.
And it's just pounding on her day in and day out. And
the fact that they lost those 2 seats was not because she didn't show her Cucek tohon.
That's right. There are other problems with the party that we can go on in forever. But she eventually felt forced to reveal it. Now, that has really bad implications.
It's got some repercussions, doesn't it?
Because there are...
It sets a precedent.
Yeah, sets a precedent of being pushed to do it. There has been a tremendous emphasis in the post-1945 era on trying to avoid the revealing of one's personal background. Article 14 of the Constitution forbids discrimination based on religion, based on race, based on creed, and the last one, family origin. Where you grow up, whether you were a member of these undesirable groups. Mm-hmm. That has been a focus of Japan's human rights.
Right, they're trying to homogenize the society, right?
And eliminate all prejudice for these persons who, under the Edo period, the Burakami, the Eta Hinin, were judged mathematically 1/7 of one human being. They were definitely non-human. Mm-hmm. And in the media...
There were purveyors of leather, they were taking care of dead bodies, the leather work and the
this untouchable class existed. And they lived in certain areas. You can tell because there are places like Zero Bancho, Zero Land. That was actually where they lived, which they didn't even get to have a number. They had to have a 0. And there are certain members of that group who have succeeded in life.
Sure.
Hashimoto Toru, the leader of the Nippon Ishin movement, the Osaka, and former governor of Osaka Prefecture, former mayor of Osaka City, he's from that class. Nonaka Hiromu, who was the black arts master of the LDP during his time, was a member of that class. But for the most part, they try as desperately to hide their past.
Keep it down. And in fact, a lot of people whose daughters are going to get married, their fathers are checking into these backgrounds. I don't want our blood to be tainted.
Mingled with these mud people.
Right.
Just that's what it is. And the fact that she was forced to pull out her own koseki, for some people says, we're going back. Mm-hmm. We're going back to revealing people's backgrounds, to unveiling these things and punishing people.
Right.
Now, the persons who within the party pressed for her to reveal this document, not all of them did so out of malice. Some of them, like Haraguchi, said, look, we have a problem. And the only way to solve it is to put up your family registry, show that you don't have Taiwanese citizenship anymore, and then get over it.
So of all of these problems that we have one less.
We have one less. Right. Let's do it. And
let's see what happens.
And let's see what happens.
Right.
At least we'll stop this discussion. And it was particularly bad because there is a half American, half Japanese member of the LDP who also ran and won a seat in the House of Councilors without having fully renounced her U.S. citizenship. And she then went forward and renounced it quite publicly, put all her documents out online. Right. It's not the same, though. You know, to have a Taiwanese father versus having a U.S. American father. Right. There's a quality difference. There's a quality difference. One of them being that United States was never a colony of Imperial Japan, whereas Taiwan was. Nevertheless, it's been
so interesting.
It's been pressing upon her, and she tried to be principled about it and say, I cannot set this precedent. I cannot do this just because it's convenient for me. But eventually the pressure got to her, and they did that. Now, would that make a damn bit of difference in the DP's popularity? No. The DP's problems are very, very deep. First of all is its relationship to DENGO, the National Association, the National Confederation of Labor Unions. DENGO is the backbone. It's very much a conservatives, Tories versus labor kind of story between the DP and the LDP.
We're your party. We are protecting you against those big guys,
we provide
those
the ground. We provide the ground forces. We provide the basic set of votes. Some of us labor union members vote for the communists, particularly the teachers vote for the communists. Some vote for what's left, the tiny vestigial socialist party. That they're all union voters there. Nobody believes in their whatever it is they believe in, and a few people maybe. But
higher wages.
But for DP, their relationship to the big labor is absolutely crucial. And if you look at the members from the DP who won seats in the proportional vote in last year's House of Councillors election, all of them are either JAM, auto workers, the Panasonic labor union. All of these people who won seats were all supported by labor unions. So there's a tight bond there. Unfortunately, labor unions represent the past in Japan. Not only in terms of their leftism, fine, but what they represent is the two-tiered labor system of permanent workers with permanent positions versus the temps and the part-timers, and the very different pension systems, very different health systems, the very different workplace protections that are on both. And let's face it, even though they call themselves the representatives of labor, they're basically management. Japan's big labor unions, which all fall under the DENGO banner, they're basically management. They're for the permanent workforce against the part-timers. And that's irresolvable for DP. It wants to be for a more market-based, a freer society, and it's tied to these folks who want things, they want to keep their privileges and don't want anybody else to get them.
Right. Their main performance value for labor is the Shunto, the spring labor offensive, and they have done miserably. They haven't really pushed up wages in any marketable way.
I call it the spring inoffensive.
Okay.
Because the big labor, they go into the room, they say, we want higher wages and better job protections. And then they suddenly, without any prompting, say, what are we saying? Sorry, we're leaving. We'll let ourselves out. Bye. They walk away from everything. And the wages increases that they get, $15 more per month.
Victory.
That's a win.
Yeah.
$15? 1,500 yen? Are you serious?
Across the board.
That's your win? You were able to get one dinner more out of an entire year's worth of labor activity?
Right. And work till you drop.
And that's it?
All right.
Come on. And it's an insulting process, and yet that's all there exists, and the DP has to live with it. Now, it's brought the DP into conflict with itself. A lot of DP members want to get out of the nuclear industry.
Right. And once again, it's like a coalition of maybe like-minded people, but it's a protective method of trying to retain some sort of power, right?
Yeah, well, there is an attempt to, in the case, let's take the nuclear power issue.
Okay.
Fundamentally, the disaster at Fukushima happened on their watch when a Japanese prime minister from their party was in charge, and he has turned hardcore anti-nuclear.
Close down all of the nuclear, 54 of them, stop them right now.
Stop them right now, and Kan Naoto, who was the prime minister during the disaster, is a fervent anti-nuclear activist.
And everybody goes, yay! Yeah. But then there are people that work there.
That's right. No, then there's the electrical producers union and the unions of the plants where these workers, and they say, we want to protect our jobs, we want to protect our income, we want you to turn away from this anti-nuclear stance that you have established. And if you don't do it, then don't count on our votes.
It's a party with dyslexia.
And it's a party with a narrow base to start off with. Labor unions are about 15 to 10% of all workers. It's not much to start with. It's still something, but it's not a lot.
But they're not a fragmented voting bloc. I mean, they
they're
pretty much vote
fairly
in
loyal
unison,
when they can support the leadership. But they're moving away from the leadership.
because they haven't received the benefits of party affiliation.
That's right. And what they want is to have their people protected. And there's a greater likelihood that will happen with some kind of subterranean alliance with the LDP.
Right.
Which means, well, who can the DP represent? And even if they somehow put together a coalition, it will be one which only has a chance of unseating the LDP. Now, in 2009, when the DPJ took power, they were riding on a 30 to 40-year wave of revulsion with the LDP.
Sure.
Going back to the scandals that
We all felt it.
Yeah, that felled Tanaka, and everybody, they were corrupt, they were awful, and we could just get rid of them. But it took 30 years to do it. And they finally were able to get where they were. And they had to they won that victory by copying the LDP a lot. Ozawa Ichiro made deals with the truckers, he made deals with the farmers, we're going to protect you, we're going to continue protecting you, we're going to take power, but don't think that anything's going to be really different from when the LDP was in power, here. He cobbled together a massive landslide victory.
Genius. Right.
But the reality is, long term is, the LDP is more likely to be in power, and if they're more likely to be in power, and you are basically a parasite on the system, hey, you want to hatch onto them.
That's right.
And for those who don't want to be parasites, for the urban white-collar or urban blue-collar groups that want to have a more meritocratic, more market-based society.
More stable.
The DPJ offered that possibility that they would, once they got into power, they would change to emphasize the growing parts of Japan, not the parts of Japan that are fading in terms of population and in terms of their productivity. That the priorities of the country would be shifted. It didn't happen under the DPJ.
Right. Don't you think part of the backlash and the opposition to the Democratic Party is just this disappointment? You guys had it. You guys could have, done a better job, and you let us down. I was a voter for the LDP or for the communists or whatever, and I threw my lot in with you guys for 2 elections, and you guys just let me down. Don't you think there's, these memories just don't die down here?
That's absolutely the case, and unfortunately it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the DP spends all its time spinning its wheels trying to find where it is that
What's
we're
our
doing.
theme?
What did we do wrong?
Right.
What do we need to fix? And they always come up with the wrong answers.
I'm the leader this time.
Such as, it was her family registry that sank us.
Right.
No, there are all kinds of long-term structural problems.
So what's a prognosis?
The prognosis is really poor right now because they went through a lot of internal strife in terms of this process of getting her to reveal her family registry, a lot of acrimony within the party and anger at each other. They don't like spending time with each other, and that's not good for a party.
Right.
There is, of course, the problem that the polls never rise for the party. They just don't bounce up, even though Mr. Abe and his party have been seeing their numbers go down. The only people who are, the only group, if you want to call them that are benefiting are the undecided voters.
Right.
Nobody goes to the DP as an alternative.
That's true.
And the real nail in the coffin for me is the way that Koike Yuriko maneuvered her Tomin First party into power. That, okay, if the people perceive an alternative, and unfortunately it's an alternative from the right, not from the left, which is the darling view of journalists here. Oh, when is the progressive alternative to the LDP going to put itself together and challenge it? That's not the way it worked in the Tokyo Assembly election. They actually came from further right than the LDP. They talked about cleaning house, but if you look at the members, there's some real hardcore folks there, including the leader that took over from Koike. She presented an alternative. She has the right of covered, and she got the komeito, the keys to the kingdom, basically, on her side. And there is, I even asked Okada when he was the party leader. I tried to have him work out the implications in the House of Councillors election when the komeito gives the LDP enough votes for them to have majorities in both houses. Will you have talked about this issue with the komeito, trying to try to wedge yourself in, saying, look, the LDP doesn't need you anymore.
Join us.
Join
we
with
can be in
us.
opposition.
We can be. We need you. They don't. We'll listen to you. They won't. And he looked at me with complete bewilderment, like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Never going to happen.
And that they don't understand that that the LDP, when it has the komeito with it, it's invincible. But when it doesn't, it can be toppled. They haven't grasped that issue, and they don't know how to grasp that issue. Koike did, and Koike did it. And all power to her. Whether she can take it national and completely wipe out the DP is another question entirely.
Let's just to wrap this up. What is going to happen with the leader of the Democratic Party, Ren Ho, if they jettison her? If they have an inside election and they just tell her, you've done a good job. Why don't you take a pill? And somebody else comes in.
It'll be a terrible.
That would kind of kill the initiative. Wouldn't that? I mean, she's female. She's
a woman.
Got good optics.
Yeah, it would be terrible for the party because it wouldn't solve their basic problems.
Right. But they're looking for a solution. So if it's not that, any ideas?
But the thing is, they don't have anybody to step in. They don't have. If they could get Koizumi Shinjiro to escape from the LDP, that would be something.
That would be something.
He would be good looking, has the market-based views.
That would be something. Snowball's chance in hell.
Yeah, the snowball's chance of hell. He's not going to do it.
He's not going to do it.
Ever. He would never do it.
Right.
But that would make sense. Getting rid of Renho and thinking that things can be hunky-dory between the sides of the party. And the party, there's one of the things that really annoys me about commentary is people who say, oh, there are too many different points of view in the DP. Good gosh, have you ever seen the LDP?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a party that is completely all over the place. And some people have ideas that are completely crazy. The DP generally has the level of craziness down to a minimum level. Of course they have a broad tent. They're supposed to be a broad tent party. They're supposed to be a competitor for the LDP. So of course they have conservatives and they have ultra-liberals or leftists. That's entirely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There are a certain set of principles that they can work with. But because of the way that the electoral system, particularly the districts, are drawn, the effect of the komeito on the marginal districts where they could be competitive, but instead, because the komeito's definite voters are there,
they're robbing that energy.
They're just they can always count on being beaten there by that union. They're in a position that they keep fighting themselves to try to solve problems that are out of their control.
Right. 20% is not bad. They've got 20% in both houses. It's not bad, but it's really not an opposition force.
But, one of the issues is how the press views them. And the press views them as losers. And that's unfair. The system is so heavily in LDP's favor that you really can't in any way say, you're fundamentally losers. And the fact that they can have 5% support and win 20% of the seats shows that they can leverage up. They know how the numbers work, and they know how to make the elections work for them. when they challenged the LDP and took over, they could get 20% support, 25% support. They never actually very much matched the LDP until they had actually won an election. They won in 2009. It was the first time that support for that party was greater than the support for the LDP.
What a lovely time that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an
a lot of
interesting
energy.
time. There was a lot of energy, but even when they were on the brink of seizing power, they were still less popular than the LDP. They had fewer supporters. That switched for a short while and then switched back. The function of an opposition in Japan is a highly limited one. But if you can get past the filter, you're a loser. These people are not going nowhere. You're media.
Whining.
You're whining. Yeah. You sound like whiners. If you can get past that, and you can go, and you can access the actual diet debates that take place. You watch it live. You can live stream it. Sometimes it's shown on NHK. They land punches left and right. It's just that the newspapers don't have enough column space to cover all the things that they say. And this is not just the DP. All of the opposition parties really, when you watch them in action, they really hit the LDP hard, and the LDP takes it, and it just absorbs the hit, but it's clearly there. However, how many people have time to watch?
That's right.
How many people have the full time to watch the way the diet works? And the LDP has the votes in the diet. It can pass any piece of legislation it wants. So even though they are pummeled day in, day out with reasonable arguments, absolutely demolishing many of the LDP's policies or their proposals, those will win out because of the electoral system.
Voters, like our viewers, don't have all the time in the world to look at the issues really deeply, and that's what Inside Baseball's about. We hope you've enjoyed this. It's a deep dive into a contemporary issue that has political importance. Please stay tuned. This story is not finished yet.
He who breaks the rules goes back to the house of pain.